All right, news out of baseball. Last Wednesday, the commissioner, Rob Manfred, said he was 100% certain that baseball will be played this year. Well, now he's kind of come off of that, telling ESPN, unfortunately, I'm not 100% certain that we're going to play baseball this year. That's the first part. The second part is, apparently also, the owners have told the players, we're not going to be playing games unless you waive your right to file a grievance. If we have a deal to play, then that's the deal. If we're not playing, then you can file a grievance, but we can't play and have you file your grievance. Here's part of the quote. It's just a disaster for our game, absolutely no question about it. It shouldn't be happening, and it's important that we find a way to get past it and get the game back on the field for the benefit of our fans. That's pretty much what you'd expect the commissioner to say. We got to get somehow, some way, a deal. All right, let's bring in our world champs. Will Middlebrooks won a ring up in Boston. He was also the player rep there, giving us that perspective. And Jim Bowden, our MLB Executive of the Year in Cincinnati, and he won a ring as well as the general manager of the Reds. Jim, I'm going to start with you. Essentially, Rob Manfred now coming out more pessimistically about the return of baseball. That's part A. And part B, the owner's saying we're not going to play unless you guys waive the grievance against us. What do you make when you hear of these kind of statements coming from the owner's side?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, EK, and let's start with the fact that on the conference call today with the owners, they want to make sure that they're protected if they end up going back to work on a number of fronts. Let's start with the medical and the health issues. They want indemnification from the players that if a player were to get COVID-19 or something were to happen health-wise, they don't want to be held responsible for that happening. So legally, they want protection from that. And then, as you pointed out, also, if they go ahead and implement a season, they don't want to be in a situation where the union files a grievance and then all of a sudden, Major League Baseball can be sued for a variety of reasons. And we'll start with the simplest one, which is the fact that if they were to implement a season today, 64 to 67 games would be realistic, right? If you open the camps in a week, had 3 weeks of spring training, 64 to 67 is the number normally we're used to. That's without double headers that you're capable of putting in. So if they were to implement a 50-game schedule as an example and they file a grievance, I think baseball is going to have a hard time explaining why they didn't play 18 more games based on the March 26 agreement. So they want protection from that as well. The other thing they want protection of is their financials. And if all of a sudden there's a grievance filed or a lawsuit is filed by somebody involved in this, they don't want to have to release all the finances. They haven't given the players all the financials now. So for them to resume play, they want to have legal protection of something not coming down the road. Now, the other thing is, it also could just be a clear stall tactic, and it's better off for them waiting 2 weeks so they can implement their 48 to 52 game schedule when there's only such a time frame that's all that's left that you could play. So, again, it's complicated, but one thing's for sure. When Commissioner Manfred said last week he was 100% sure there's going to be baseball, he didn't know what was going to happen on the conference call with the 30 owners. And remember this, the 30 owners are making this call, not the commissioner of baseball. And that's something that we have to understand, that Commissioner Manfred is paid by the 30 owners to represent them, just like Tony Clark is paid by the players to represent the union.
All right, Will, I'm going to ask my question. It's basically a two-part question. So I'm going to ask part A, and then after you answer, I'll go to part B. Seemed like we heard two things today. Part A is the commissioner saying, I'm no longer 100% certain that we're going to play baseball. And as Jim pointed out, the owners are making that decision, and he works for the owners. So this is essentially him saying, hey, maybe we won't play. Do you see that as a legitimate threat, or do you think that he's posturing and trying to just sort of threaten the union guys into maybe becoming more towards what the owners want them to be?
They always threaten the union guys. That's what they do. But look, this is, like Jim said, this is a stall tactic. They've made it clear from day one, we're not paying full prorated money more than 48 games. If you want more than that, it's going to be severely discounted or for free. And in a global pandemic, that's not going to happen. The players are not going to let that happen. This is 100% just to buy them time and then say, well, now we don't have time for 60 games. We only have time for 48, because that's all. At the end of the day, the issue to me is the owners. Well, where's the responsibility to the sport? Why don't you care about the state of the game? Why is it only about your pocketbook? This is just about money to them, and then they're ruining the game.
Now, the second part is, We want you to waive grievances or your right to file grievances if we're going to play games. And as Jim has pointed that out and David Sampson, there's two reasons. One, we don't want to get sued for COVID if something happens. We're partners in this. And number two, we don't want you to play getting paid an agreement and then trying to sue us for back pay at the same time. As a player, is that a reasonable request from the owners?
I would have to dig more into that. At this point, no. With a global pandemic, I feel like if I work for a business and I get sick with that because you're not doing taking the correct precautions with the testing and the cleaning and all that, that should be on you. I'm there working in the middle of this pandemic because you want me there, regardless of whatever pay and numbers they come up with. So no, I don't think it's correct.
Jim, what about the health issue? I mean, is this going to be an even bigger hurdle that we've just kind of kicked that can down the road for now? Or do you feel like if they get the money set, they'll be able to work out the rest of it?
Well, I think, first of all, I think the clubs need to get the indemnification from the players. I think one of the things that the owners have said here is that you don't have to go to work. But if you don't go to work, we're not going to pay you. We're not going to give you service time unless you have a medical situation or a reason why you're high risk to get it. But, you don't want to open up a season and then something, God forbid, horrible happens, and all of a sudden the sport is sued hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, that's something that nobody wants to have happen. And I think when you go to work, we all understand the risk that we take health-wise, regardless of what workplace that we're in. So I think that's a kind of a complicated issue here. But I do think that the legal part of the health, I can completely understand. I don't understand the ability to try to prevent the other side from filing a grievance. I don't think that's anything the union should have to have interest in. I think there's a big disagreement on what the March 26 agreement was. Was this situation supposed to be renegotiated with no fans in the stands? And that's the first part of it. And then second of all, is Major League Baseball doing its best effort to play as many games as possible? I mean, both of those issues aren't agreed upon by either side. And this is a case of why you have an arbitration process, to have a non-biased person come in and get the correct answer for both sides. So I understand the club's position and support it on the medical part to protect the team. At the same time, I think from a business perspective, you can't ask the union to not file a grievance if they've been done wrong.
I understand what you're saying. Two different parts there. That agreement back in March, as you mentioned, it'd be interesting as a lawyer who has done contracts once or twice. It'd be interesting to see if there was a meeting of the minds now that all the full facts are there. Okay. Well, here we go. You were a player rep in Boston. I'm a young player on the Red Sox. You're my player rep. I call you up right now. I catch you at home, and I say, what do we do? I don't know. I mean, what do we do now? What should we do? You say what to me?
I'm saying I'm on the phone with Tony Clark and his guys as soon as I can be. Look, I will say I think the whole grievance, this isn't going to happen. That's not going to happen. Of them not being able to file a grievance. It's just not going to happen. This is just a bump in the road to slow them down and simply stall and buy time to run out of time and not be able to play as many games as the players want to play. This is a cat and mouse game, and that's all it is.
I understand that. I think that's probably right. But at the end of the day, Jim, what's the % chance that we're going to play baseball? And has that percentage changed in your mind in the last 24 hours?
I told you a month ago it was 99.9%. I'll tell you right now it's 99.9%. We've all watched negotiations between the union and owners for years and years. Major League Baseball is not going to give up that postseason revenue. They're not going to. But they want to play as few games as possible. They've done the math, and the math says to them 48 to 52 games is what we can stomach, and we can't stomach anything more than that. And it's too early to implement a season right now because you'd lose in a grievance. So, as Will Middlebrooks just said eloquently, it's a stall tactic. And you know what? Both sides will get back to the table at some point. But we need about 10 to 12 more days before we can implement 48 to 52 without worrying about losing a grievance.
That is very well done by our guys. Jim Bowden, excellent work. Our GM, well, Middlebrooks, our world champ up there in Boston. As a Red Sox fan, I like saying that as much as possible. I'm just pointing that out. Anyway, so here we go. Here is one of the players. Here's the tweet. These so-called, quote, negotiations, end quote, or lack thereof, have been so slimy, tone-deaf, greedy, lying, leaking, and overall out of touch. This is not even close to what you dream of as a kid. Sorry to everyone for this playing out through the media during a pandemic. Brutal. So at least one player saying, we got to keep this quiet.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.